Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm privileged to welcome a very, very tall leader from the corporate world in India, Mr. Nawshir Dara Khurody. Nawshir, welcome to the show.
Okay.
Mr. Khurody is the former managing director of Voltas Ltd. He's also currently the oldest TAS member. And TAS, as a lot of you may know, is one of the most desired organizations to join. And it is also called the Indian Administrative Service of the corporate sector. So Nawshir, let's start by asking you about your amazing journey from Larsen and Toubro to the top in not one, but two iconic Tata organizations. What did you do right? What were your challenges? What were your learnings?
This is very interesting. Henning Holklassen was very friendly with my father.
Mm-hmm.
When I graduated from Cambridge, my father told Holklassen, Henning, look, my son is becoming a leftist. Cambridge is very leftist.
Okay.
He's an intellectual.
Mm-hmm.
Why doesn't he come into the real world?
Mm-hmm.
So Holklassen at that time, they were building what are called the small ships for carrying cargo at Lübeck, a machine in Bau, LMG.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, look, will he work as a laborer?
Mm-hmm.
My father said, he'll do as he's told.
Mm-hmm.
So off I went. And I found myself working as a laborer, scrubbing the sides of ships,
wow,
repainting them with red oxide. These are small ships, North Sea sort of ship. After a while, after the second or third day, I noticed that people on the left and right, their heads were covered with big white cloths, and I realized they were ladies. So after a while, my German improved. I began to speak Plattdeutsch from Hochdeutsch. And they saw me when we came down, going to the canteen, buying another sandwich and taking it home for dinner, because obviously I didn't know how to cook.
Okay.
So one day they said, you come home and you eat with us. So I began to go to their homes, and in all their homes, and this is something I can never forget, as you entered the home, there were black and white pictures on the walls of men.
Okay.
Brothers, sons, friends, died World War II.
Wow.
That was, the sort of, it just hit me. It is just going to war. We were all, brought up on the British side in Nazi Germany and all, but was it that, Now, the day I left Lübeck, driver of the car said, do you mind, we have to go through another gate. Some work is going on. I don't know, as long as you get me to the docks. At this other gate, they're all lined up, hundreds, and they sang Auld Lang Syne. And there's one about Lily Marlene. I just got tears in my eyes, And so, it led me to believe that you must do the right thing.
Correct.
And when I came back, it was Holklassen who pointed out the TAS. He said, look, there's this ad in the papers. I joined as his EA, his driver. We both loved the art, so we'd go to the art galleries together. And he said, look, I said, Mr. Holklassen, you're sacking me. He said, no, I'm not sacking you. If you don't like it, you can rejoin me.
Okay.
It was he who phoned up my father and said, get this boy. I had turned down TAS, actually.
Amazing. Amazing.
I had written on the back of the letter, no, thank you, I'm very happy with L&T. But so it is largely Holklassen. I'm very grateful to him. And we remained friends for a long time.
Fantastic.
Now, he was a man, I wish I could have interviewed him.
I know. Well, maybe I'll do another recording with you and talk about his stories. But moving on, Nawshir, you were also telling me that you have never been comfortable as a corporate person. And then you told me this story, which was that at the Bahrain airport, where Mr. JRD Tata and your wife were present in the opening, Mr. Tata told your wife, Roshan, not realizing that you were nearby, that your husband would go far in Group Tata, but he rarely is to be seen in corporate parties, especially between Friday afternoon to Sunday evenings. To which your wife, Roshan, replied, "Sir, he is your employee, but my husband." And then you said Mr. Tata embraced her and said, "I wish more wives were like you." And this was around 1979. Tell me about this fascinating episode, which seems to define your working life.
You see, to quote in those days for an international tender, one had to get clearance from the top. JRD said, look, Bahrain is under the influence of the British. You're just wasting your time. I said, look, it's a World Bank tender, sir. So whoever is L1 and has pre-qualified, get the job. And we know that the British firms, because they can have some water, please, would quote very high. So we persuaded Carrier in Bahrain to quote with us, and we were L1. We got it. JRD said, well, I owe you a favor. I said, Sheikh Isa on the other side, that 28-year-old. It won't look nice. So he came along, and that's when this happened. He didn't realize. And somehow, after that, came back, and I began to realize that JRD was also very much leave the office on time, spend a lot of time with his wife, go on holiday, and he would switch off the lights at 6:30, 5:30. 1 hour late, all right, but then off. Fourth floor at Bombay House.
Wow.
So, and through him, we coined this very simple phrase, simplicity with brevity gives clarity.
Wow.
And that's the way I can sum up that experience with JRD and Bahrain.
Amazing. Amazing. So moving on now, Nawshir, you have turned around two companies, Tata Tea and Voltas. I want to get an understanding from you at what goes into turning around big companies like these Tata Tea and Voltas.
I think by Tata Tea, you mean the Instant Tea project, not Tata Tea.
Instant Tea project, okay.
Tata Finlay at the time. The Instant Tea project was the first of its kind in the world because it used green leaf, which means the juice of the green leaf was spray dried, as against the normal method of normal tea being spray dried. And somehow it wasn't doing well. Colonel Soni, JRD's brother-in-law, said, you're a task officer, you've completed your training, your induction. Now let's go and see what you can really do. So you go to Munnar. Non-family posting. I just got married a few months ago. So off I went, and I found very quickly the reason why the project was going slow was there's a non-cooperation between three elements. The English managers who supplied the tea leaves at their own whim and fancy, because there was no fixed contract. More important, the Tamilian head clerks who ran their own little side businesses. And third, the Mudawan people who felt deprived of this was coming up on their lands. And therefore they would guide the elephants to come and walk through and I had to bring these elements all together.
Mm.
So the first thing was the green leaf mulch. We took and we spread on the outskirts of the factory. So the elephants then began to follow the mulch and left the factory alone. That is number one. The Finlay factor was revealed to me by an English lady at the club. Said, look, for one thing, you're 26, 27. The managers of the estates are twice your age. And never mind that, they haven't been to Oxford and Cambridge and all that sort of thing that you have done. And therefore, there's that slight resentment. So I went out of my way then to befriend them, make that look, it's just one of you. The third was, and this was the biggest one, when wages were being paid to the Mudaman laborers, mainly girls, there would be a tin can kept under where they were so, and in that coins will drop. So I'm paying, as the paying officer, 10 rupees in a note, and suddenly coins are dropped. So afterwards, I asked the clerk, they were all Tamilian, the Tambams. They said, sir, please don't interfere in this. I said, this is Tata Finlay, excuse me. Not interfering. This is, I run the show.
Correct.
And may I have that? Where does this money in the tin can go? This is don't interfere with all this. I said, I'll hold the tin. Now the Mudaman girls are scantily dressed on top. So, they put the 10 rupee note and then look at for the tin can. I said, no tin can. So they'd bend further and these people would take pictures and send them to my wife.
Amazing.
Yeah. That was
amazing.
After a while, with the help of translators, I asked these Badun people, how can I get this spray drying plant up in time to meet the annual auction for instant tea held in Florida once a year? You miss that cycle, you miss an 11-month cycle. So this is can we undo the cartons in the order in which they are to be sheets? Basically, it's a spray drying tar is steel cladding. My God, common sense. So they lined up everything. They got this up. Now, when my wife came, Kanu Soni said, look, you haven't seen your husband for over a year, and now we're going for the opening, so why don't you come along? She came along, and before the opening, she said, excuse me, I want to thank the people who have sent me these photographs. It got such a shock. But from the faces, she could make out who had done it. She said, come in. She said, thank you for looking after my husband.
Oh, wonderful. And now let's shift to Voltas, sir. You also went in at a time and you got quite an amazing reputation for how you turned Voltas around also. Tell me a little bit about that story.
That was a lot. 1997, I'd completed my stint with Moksha Pando Merend. The High Command said, go back to the company where you grew up. It's in a mess. A 10 rupee share was quoting at 7 rupees 50 paise. And Larsen Toubro around the corner wishes to buy it at a very fancy premium. And somehow we feel that we shouldn't sell this off. It's an 85-year-old company, Voltas of Switzerland and Tata of India. I said, look, I'll go in, but on one condition, nobody will interfere with me. We bought. And within a very short time, I realized that the bottleneck is at the top of the bottle. It's as simple as that. So I went to the board of directors, and the two Parsi directors, very close to us, Sabawala and Sunawala. I said, sir, will you please step off? It'll give the signal. And they did, I must say. Mr. Shahrukh Sabawala in his stentorian voice said, "I think it is time for us to go." That set off the thing again.
Mm.
And then the senior managers under whom I'd grown up, they started to, but some of them, their wives wouldn't talk to my wife anymore. It became anyway.
Yeah.
Now you have to reconstruct the company.
Correct.
We found that Voltas had gone into shoe leather exports, what do you call it, granite stones from the south, fish exports, etc. So I closed all these trading divisions down.
Right.
My predecessor, Mr. Tobacco Wallace, said, "Look, this is a trading company." I said, "No, it's an engineering company. It's electromechanical engineering company." So he said, "No, you got it wrong, and this is the markets are poor, and it'll correct us." I said, "No, sir, excuse me." And then I went back to the High Command in Bombay. I said, "Please don't." He said, "We've given you our word, we won't do that. But show us results." Fair enough. Fortunately, two iconic projects came up. Al Burj Khalifa in Dubai and Hong Kong International Airport, the new one across the sea. We quoted for both. We got both.
Wow.
And that convinced the board. And they said, "But who will execute these?" I said, "I've got a team of people. They're 30, 31 years old. Okay. But the commitment, they will learn." What did the guys in China do? They subcontracted the work to the Chinese. Clever.
Right.
Because only China could deal with the Chinese. And in Dubai, they managed to they got the whole thing up. In fact, if you go to the Al Burj Khalifa, in the basement, in concrete, the names of these young people have been inscribed.
Wow.
In Arabic and in English.
Amazing. Amazing.
So,
amazing.
Voltas was, I must say, thanks to Ishaq Hussain, who became the new chairman. And I didn't say that this is me making the change. It was necessary. How can a company which is, being part of our blood when we were young just crash? So I didn't make it personalized. That's the worst thing you could do. You're replacing one personality with another. It had to be done.
I agree. Great response. Moving on, sir, now, you spend all your life with the Tata Group and, of course, the Hock Larsen. What would you say are some of the strongest values of the Tata Group?
Strongest values the Tata Group is something I think. Okay, let me give you an instance where this first. Tata's had a joint venture with the world famous Merck Sharp and Dome, MSC, the world's largest pharma company. JRD was not too keen to be in that pharma world. Its pricing and all this. We managed to tear out of it. Now, Dr. Roy Vagelos, the global head of MSD and the person who wrote the Merck manual, a great figure in his own right. His office phoned me and said, "Dr. Vagelos would like to meet you, to invite you to become the regional director in Athens of MSD. And at a salary which was 4 taxes per Tata, so is tax-free, based in Athens." And I came back and told Roshan and said, "I don't think you'll be happy there." I said, "I also, but I mean, rationally, logically, I should take it for the sake of our kids, etc." He said, "You'll be happy." Now, what is this Tata value? They never have asked me to do anything wrong. Even in Jamshedpur, when there was a mine, the Normandy mine, as is now known as, was available for a small percentage to be paid to a local politician. And I remember putting up a note to Sajagir Gandhi at the time, and he slapped my hand down. And when I left, he said, I want that, mine. And how we went and persuaded them. You know, all these recollections that you can come home, look at your kids in the eyes, take them for a walk, look at your wife in the eyes, and you never had any guilt.
Absolutely.
And the respect you got outside was Unilever offered me, Nestle, GE. But you just felt that.
Absolutely.
You're comfortable here. That's
well said. Well said. Nawshir, I'm now going to move to a couple of questions for you as a coach. And I know you do coach people. In the interest of time, I'm going to jump one or two questions. As a coach, I want to ask you, how has your background, you know, the incredible journey you've had, how has that supported your coaching philosophy, your style, and your values?
First of all, I cannot call myself a coach because I'm not qualified.
Okay.
You have to qualify from the coaching.
Only if you want to claim it, but that's okay. There's no restriction on that.
So I always call myself helper.
Okay.
I help people. And my style would be to set 3 questions. In your career, in the last 5-6 years, these would be people in their late 30s, early 40s, who are being tipped for higher up positions. In the last 6-7 years, what have you done which went well? Why? What have you done which did not go so well? Why? And what would you have done differently in hindsight, and why?
Wow.
And I'd sit back and listen to the answer. Most people would elaborate on the first 2. And on the last one, give 5 minutes. So those I would put across. The ones who spent a lot of time on the last question, what should I have done differently and why? That showed a sense of introspection, analysis, ability to be self-critical. Keep yourself, there's too much of ego in Indian. Keep yourself out of it. Just be a neutral, piece of Lego.
Absolutely. I agree. My next question to you is, that you have managed people across different ages. You've also worked with the current millennials and the Gen Zs, who are the younger leaders. I wanted to get your perspective, Nawshir, on how is it to manage these young leaders who come in with a very, very new concept, new thoughts, and they come into organizations with like a breath of fresh air. So what are some of the areas they need to be coached in?
First of all, if they're the MBA types, as they generally are, I please tell them, look, put your MBA behind you. On my visiting card, do you ever see MA Cantab? They see your MA Cantab? I said, yes. It means I've done the tripos.
Correct.
Why do you have to flaunt this? Mind you, it was new at the time. But you just be humble. And do you want people to follow you because you are dominant, or do you want to follow them because they see you as a leader?
Correct.
Then very often I'd say, can I talk to your wife, someone who's close to you, etc. Invariably you find they have a problem with the parent. There's some domestic problem which has caused them to behave like this. You say, leave that domestic problem aside and you come to work. These are people you have to care for. These are your children. You have to nurture them. Neutral. Be neutral. Again, this is self. For example, when I left Voltas after that, on my final, when I was 75 years old, 70 years of age, and they said farewell party. I said, no, please, no farewell party, etc. I just walk around the office and say bye. Just bye to people. The farewell party concept with all the people wanting to go home because, all these parties would take up so much of their time. And again, the number of people who showed up just to shake hands while going around. It's amazing. Yeah.
Amazing.
The other instance I can give you, but in confidence, is one day in the lunch hour, and my secretary had a notice up, do not disturb me in the lunch hour, because I used to read my books on poetry. This lady came bursting into the room in tears. And my secretary came running after her saying, don't you see the notice? I said, look, she's in tears, just let her be. So she said, don't you know why I'm here? I said, I have no idea, ma'am. What's it? She said, don't you know? I said, please tell me, what is it? She mentioned the name of a man who was my right-hand man. He's bringing 60-70% of the profits of chemical trading, which was our big business in those days. And he molests.
Oh my God.
He pretends to show me how to use my laptop, etc., puts his arms, touches me not appropriately. And I can't take this anymore. I just would like to leave. At the same time, I'm very happy in my work. I said, suppose it stopped. Would you stay? He said, it won't stop. I said, it will stop because I'll ask him to go. She said, what?
Amazing.
After I verify your statement, I walked around the office. Whenever I saw a cluster of girls sitting by themselves in the lunch or something, I'd ask them this question. The fact that they remained silent gave me the answer.
Absolutely.
So I called this particular gentleman. I said, there are two pieces of paper in front of you. One is you resign immediately, and the other is you're fired.
Wow.
He said, oh, boss, you've been listening to all these girls and their fanciful stories. I'll call a board meeting, and you will get the sack, not me, because he's the person bringing the revenue. The board meeting was convened, and he made his point and then left the room, and the board said, now what is your point now, Nawshir? My point is simply this. Suppose those girls had been your mother, your sister, your wife, or whoever. They got the message.
Wow.
They said, now look, he will be snapped up by competition. I said, I have written to the wives of my major competitors, told them this is the reason why. They said, what? Done that in, I said, in handwriting, personal from my home address. I got standing. He went to Canada, he sued me, but nothing happened.
Well, I think that story gives me a very deep insight into the values of the entire group. And I think you epitomize a lot of these values.
They come out, they somehow, there can be no other.
Well said.
There is no room for anything else.
Absolutely. And I completely agree with whatever you have told me about this. But in the interest of time, I've got to ask you my last question, Nawshir. And this is for the many, many young people who will listen to our conversation.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, based on a life well lived, such a successful corporate career, you stood with your values. What would you say are 3 lessons or 3 learnings you want our viewers and listeners to take away from your journey and from our conversation?
Family first. Second, duty towards one's job. Duty towards one's job. Third, be the same person. Whether you're talking to Mr JRD Tata or you're talking to the driver, be the same person. Why do you be different people? I pick this up from JRD. In New York, for example, he'd carry his own bag while checking in. Chairman of Air India. And Air India was a private company.
Yeah.
Or the taxi driver, when we'd go to the offices of Tata's, he'd sit in front and chat away with the taxi driver. So he was not a champion. Be the same person. Be consistent. Be oneself.
How amazing.
Then I took this from the Parsi thing. Good words, good thoughts, and good deeds. Stress good deeds. We're not interested in your thoughts.
Well said.
Just do good deeds all the time.
Agree with you. Agree with you. And on that note, Nawshir, and your amazing lessons of family first, duty towards one's job, be the same person, irrespective of whether you're talking to someone like a Nawshir Khurody or to the driver, and do good deeds. And your amazing comments about simplicity with brevity brings clarity. I think that's such a powerful comment you gave for all of us. Thank you so much for talking to me about your own journey, about your incredible successes, about your philosophies, about the way you have actually been able to say no. And I very often said that a lot of us don't have the courage to say no. And my conversation with you, what's come out very clearly is you're a person who had the guts to be able to say, no, I will not do it. I will stand with my conviction. I will stand with my values. Thank you so much for speaking to me.
And for that, I must thank Roshan, my wife, passed away. But I mean, if I'd come back and done something wrong, finished.
I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All my pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.